Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to talk about a couple of complex topics or very interconnected topics where people may or may not perceive the interconnectedness of these topics. And I want to bring that light to the interconnectedness in these topics. So, if people are researching me based on the videos I've been posting, you will see that I have held a past job as a pharmacist. I've also held some preschool job positions. I have done some research work in US healthcare, but I was also a MBA and healthcare administration student. And though in my life after I finished my third master's degrees, I didn't end up pursuing a lot of career elements related to those coursework before I actually joined those degree programs or while I was in those degree programs. I did a lot of things that were related to those programs in my normal life. So the reason why I was good in MBA school was because I had already practiced some elements of um, doing a business while I was working in a retail as a pharmacist. Same way, with regards to healthcare administration related work, some of the work happened while I was doing the coursework. When in US we do internships, which give us exposure to different smaller business ideas or collaborating with businesses about something to give us a wider perspective of those business areas. What in practice we end up doing is dependent on where we land in our jobs. So when we are landing a job after a coursework, many a times people think, and this is a misconception globally, like say you have done a work at a top tier institute of any country and done a degree program from there, or if you have done a degree program from any average institute and you were the top student of that institute. Both times when you are either in a very top institute, you feel that if you were in that top institute, you will end up succeeding in life, or you feel that if you were the top tier in your own institute, again you will have an element of success in life. Now, is it a true paradigm or a false paradigm? The thing is, both of these are true and false at the same time, because when you are indeed selected in a top tier program, it does show in some ways that whatever is the accepting criteria in that year when you entered that program, based on that accepting criteria, you may be the cream of the crop. In top institutes of any country, there are some paid seats. There are, at least in India, we have something called a concept of paid seat as well as a concept of free seat. A free seat means someone who gets either a scholarship like position or their study is subsidized by the government of that country. Whereas a paid seat is something where someone who's extremely rich and has a lot of finances is able to get access to that seat. So you can get entry because you are really one of the top richest person of a country. You could get entry because you are such a good student and studying that you get good grades, and you set up the criteria, not just the grade criteria. Some institutes don't simply look at the grades, they will look at other elements of a person's qualifications to get them into those institutes. But after you get into the institute, whether you will succeed in the institute is again dependent on what? Is it dependent on the money you had or the grades you had previously? No, that was a past experience of yours. While succeeding in a particular degree program, you will succeed based on who you are along with the group you are working with, as well as who you are in the context of what you know, as well as who you are in the context of what is required in that field next as a evolution of that field on earthly life. All of these will actually be influencing your success. But which success will always be only looked at by a professor or by your classmates? The success that a classmate or a professor might look at will be either your grades or how well you match the professor's understanding of the subject. And now there are multiple kinds of professors too. Some professors are professors who have been teaching for 10-20 years and are stuck in their ways and are not ready to understand what is the new direction their field has to go to. Now, if you are a student who are working with a professor who doesn't understand which is the new direction someone has to go through, you will not align with that professor. So even if you are the next generation's light, or you have some information that will take things to the next generation, you will never be the favorite student of that teacher. If you are a student, again, if you are an innovative kind of a person and you are thinking in a way that is going to cause some changes in the future, which will not happen like right now maybe, but you have the germination seeds of that thinking process that is needed for some future work. At that time, there are many people also who are in set in their ways, or who understand a particular subject in the particular way in which they need to understand it. They will not be able to see it outside of that paradigm. So because of which, when people are not able to see things outside of the normal general set paradigm that has already been fixed for maybe a couple of decades or centuries, even if you have the best information possible, that best information will not germinate until it is the time for that information to germinate. And this is how a seed also works. A seed, when a seed is just simply there in our homes, if it's just staying in our homes in a like lentils, we all eat so many lentils and nuts. Many of these lentils and nuts are actually seeds, and these seeds, if we germinate it in a soil or germinate it and soak it in some water, some of these start sprouting. But without what, when we are soaking it in water, is it just the water which is causing it to sprout? No, it is water plus some minerals that might be there in the water, plus some air, all of which, and some inherent nutrients that's present already in the seed. All of this combined causes a seed to germinate in water. But after a seed has germinated and sprouted in water, if we want to grow that seed into a plant, we have to eventually put it in the soil. Why? Because while water and air and some inherent mineral qualities were present inside the seed itself, or slight minerals might have been there in the water you used, when the minerals that are there within the seed and the water is used up, it needs actual minerals from the natural soil. That's why you have to bury it in soil. And again, when you bury it in soil, if you don't give it the right quality nutrients, that seed might not germinate further and grow further. Same way, whatever germinated, little bit of sprouting had happened, that sprout will not grow into a larger plant or a bigger tree. In order for it to grow into, from a seed into a larger plant and then into a larger tree, if it is a tree related seed, whatever it needs to go to the next stage of its evolution journey, that seed can't do that evolution journey without the right elements of thriving present in its life. So if I have sprouted a coriander seed, now that coriander seed will not germinate into a coriander plant, which literally happened to me when I was trying to grow some plants in my area during rainy season. When the rains were coming, when there's air pollution and water pollution in my area, the air and water pollution combined in the first rains were falling on these plants which were out there in my windowsill. And when they were out there in my windowsill, they fell on my plants. The pollution in that area ended up dying, killing the seed, even though my soil was pretty good, and before the rains, the seeds were had germinated to a good level. Same thing also happened. I had taken months to germinate a few other plants before the rains, and they were germinating well in the conditions of the home life when there were no rains. Because while air pollution was indeed present in the air, that air pollution was because my home was in an upper floor, the air pollution levels that were there in the ground floor, or even the earth pollution quantity that is present in the soil of the area I'm living, that soil pollution, air pollution, water pollution was not impacting that plant. And I was trying to use the filter water to grow the seeds in my home, and that plant that grew out of the seed I had planted grew for 3-4 months in the home in a real good condition. But according to the instructions I read online, and I'm not a very expert gardener, but I have just basic understanding about it. So after reading some things about how to raise this plant, I realized that after a few months of growing in the home, it needs to actually grow in the soil, because it's meant to grow into a tree sized plant eventually. That plant will eventually grow into a tree after it has grown enough. But when I planted it in the soil of the earth, what happened is, because there's a lot of chemical spraying that was being done by the gardeners, that was being done by this municipality. There's also water pollution that's going on in the area because of all the chemical related activities we humans are doing in this area, in our daily lives, that are normalized practices. Then because the soil content has now been polluted due to the water and soil pollution that's going on in that area, this plant died within a few days or weeks, because it couldn't survive in the conditions that it was placed in outside of the home. While in the home, on a windowsill, and I had created fertilized soil from a little bit of normal soil, along with some leftover foods and other things that are required to make soil, organic soil at home. So I did that. So the organic soil content in my home was better quality, because I was not spraying any pesticides on it. I was not adding any polluting water to it. So it had survived for 3 to 6 months. Because I don't remember the exact number of months I had grown it in the home, but roughly this was the period it was surviving in my home. But as soon as it went into the ground, it didn't survive after a few months. So this thing people have to start observing now in their life, because what has happened when people have money, access to a lot of money, or people have access to a lot of resources, what's been going on with those who have access to a lot of money or lot of resources, or when plants in our country are not really that expensive. You can easily buy a plant for 100 200 rupees. So, or even the seeds are not that expensive, so you can easily buy seeds and plants for cheaper prices. So what people end up doing, if say they grew a plant, and like this these plants died within a few months or a few weeks, when they have died, what people do, I'll try it again. So they will go and buy another set of plants, and they'll continue doing the irresponsible practices than learning from what in your irresponsible practices are contributing to the plants dying. Like, we have so many greenery related initiatives people are trying to do on earth, but in these greenery related initiatives also, you will see all these offices where people are putting potted plants in their offices, homes where people have potted gardens in their balconies or terraces or their windowsills, or people who live in have some a bit of land attached to their home. There also people might be planting certain flowering agents and planting agents, whatever they are planting there. When their plants are beginning to die, many people don't want to do the deeper dive into why is their plant dying. If their plant is dying, is there something they can do to ensure that the plant survives? Because even before these two types of planting activities that I did, that I mentioned here, before that, when I was trying to grow some plants, I was directly using the tap water of my area. And when I was using the tap water in my area, these plants that had survived like for a few weeks or for a few months were not even able to grow for even those few weeks or few months, and they were dying within a short span. Immediately they were dying, they were decaying, and I didn't understand at that time why they were doing it, because at that time I was not aware that heavy water pollution was going on in this area. But as soon as I started consciously becoming aware that water pollution is going on, then I put two and two together, that the water pollution from the tap was causing these plants to die very easily. Or there were some plants which didn't even get to, like, if I bought a small plant from the local seller who sells smaller plants, After I got the plant from that seller and I have potted it into a bigger pot also, because the seller might have it in this size, a cup size plastic bag, while when I bring it home, I'm planting it into at least 3 to 4 times larger potted conditions. But in that potted soil also, because water pollution was going on, and also there is less sunlight that was entering the area where that plant was kept in my home, both of which, when less sunlight is also there, when water pollution was also there, that plant, which was only this small size, didn't grow beyond this small size. It couldn't grow into a larger plant because it didn't have good nutrition, and because whatever water was available to it was not enough to sustain the growth of any plant. Like when it is a leaving plant, it was a leaf based plant, so that plant should grow into multiple leaves. And that same plant has been raised by my family in different circumstances where pollution was less on a earth 20-30 years back, when earth pollution was much less. At the time, the same plant had grown 10 times more, 100 times more, and like we could plant it into a couple of different potted plants also. When it's growing that much, it was thriving in those conditions. Whereas in this home, because of less sunlight exposure, less clean water, and also the soil was not getting enriched again and again with little more nutrients, all three factors cause the plant to stay shrunk in size, and it is not growing larger. Or like, say if it was a 3 leaf plant that I brought, even now it is only 3 to 4 leaves, and most of the leaves are usually very dull and decayed and easy dying really soon. And the same problem that I'm seeing inside my home, inside my potted plant, is also something that is reflecting on the outside also. Because on the outside, what is happening unusually out of off season, because the earth pollution was high in this area, because the water pollution is high, because the air pollution is also potentially high, all three reasons are causing those plants and trees that have existed in this area for even 30 to 50 years or longer. Even those plants, now those who are 50-year-old trees, those trees might have some more stronger resilience than a tree or a plant that was planted like 10 years back. But if you have two trees in this area, one tree is a 50-year-old tree, one tree is a 10-year-old tree, both of them, after being wrecked by the recent earth pollution in this area, earth pollution that was just not the recent one, is maybe three factors, all three: earth, water, air, causing health harm here. But 50 years back, 30 years back, also there was some earth pollution. Earth pollution that slowly escalated into a heightened level of earth pollution in recent years. So that earth pollution that has been creeping in this area slowly over time of human activity in this area means that both these plants have had exposure to the earth pollution conditions. But the plant, which is only a 10-year-old plant, has had the worst earth pollution in the last 10 years compared to the tree that has grown for, been in this area for 50 years, where in the first maybe 30 years, it didn't have as much earth pollution conditions. So it got the chance to become a robust tree, a healthy fruiting and flowering tree. But that same fruiting and flowering tree, if it is continuously living in an area with bad conditions of health, unsupportive factors, if it will either stop flowering, it will either stop fruiting, or whatever fruits and flowers it will give will have some anomalies. The leaves will show some health decay. And nowadays, in recent years, I saw many leaves are also falling and falling off of the trees in unusual number, not the same number as leaves usually fall off when weather changes are happening. So which is similar to like how when we have extreme hair fall happening in our hair, which can be because of nutritional deficiency, can be because of also water pollution in our areas. Because if we don't eat the right food, or even when we eat the right food, our body has some health issues that is not causing the right food to be absorbed by us, or even after absorption of the right food, our health is in distress in such a way that all the food is not getting distributed to all the organs in equitable and balanced manner. All of these are responsible for right nutrients to not reach our hair. And when the right nutrients are not reaching our hair, then we end up having extreme hair fall. Or apart from right nutrients not reaching our hair, if there's constantly some pollution going on that is harmful for the growth of our scalp cells and all the live functions that our body does, same thing, the if our normal organic functions are getting blocked by chemical exposures, then again you will end up having extreme hair fall. Those who may have alopecia, those who may have scaly patches and eczema like conditions on their scalp, developing on their scalp, while earlier when earth pollution was less, simply taking a medicine, applying something on your hair, all of these were good practices to ensure that your scalp condition, skin condition, hair fall condition will get easily treated. Now it is really important to also focus on the earth pollution parameter, because if there is water pollution going on in your area, the safest way to get out of that scalp irritation problem would be to ensure that your water you're using for taking a shower or a bath is clean water, cleanest, purest water. Because water is cleansing and pure and beneficial and healthy only when it is pure H2O, not when it is H2O plus added chemicals and minerals in it. Same way, if you are eating food, if your deficiency is happening, your water is right, pollution is not bad, your health is in a good level. But if your food is now nutritionally challenged, or your health has deteriorated because of earth and food pollution, or air pollution, earth pollution, multiple levels of pollution, your health has deteriorated. At that time, again, if your health has deteriorated at a level where you need to take medicine, of course you have to take some medication to help your health. But medication only does part of the job. Medication helps usually with the symptoms. Sometimes it will help relieve the symptoms. Sometimes it will help relieve the extreme distress from a symptom that is arising because of some health unsupportive factors. And this concept people don't understand, and that's why I think that medicine is like a band-aid. They think when I have a wound, I need a band-aid. When I have a larger wound, I need a stitch. When I have a larger wound with a broken bone, I need a stitch plus the bones getting reset in the right way. Yes, all these three are truth of what modern medicine has taught people, and our perception of health is. But our perception of health also needs to align first with true health. And if you want to understand true health, if you read many kinds of spiritual texts or many kinds of really deep, insightful books or knowledge based paradigms about health, you will understand the main healing is actually being done by the person's own body's balance systems and able to recover into a balanced state. Our own body's balancing state is involved in aiding our recovery. Because you will also see, like, say, I am a rich person, and my family, when I get a small cut while playing, puts a band-aid on my hands. When my hand got cut while I fell down somewhere, and they put a band-aid on that wound. Like after cleaning and doing all the right things, they've put a band-aid there. Because I am moderately rich or ultra rich, we have practiced that we will put a band-aid on my wound. But those who are from a poor family, or they are just been raised by the streets, like they are orphans, they don't have anyone. Those people, if they get a wound, doesn't their wound also get healed? Some of their wounds get healed if their body has the right nutrition, right health supportive conditions. Some of those people who get wounds on their hands while they are just street children or lower socioeconomic person, they get easily healed because their body has that resilience and balancing capacity to heal them even without applying a band-aid on their wound. Of course, there are going to be larger segments if the earth pollution levels are higher, if health supportive conditions are really minimal. The first persons on whom these health unsupportive conditions will start showing up are the weakest member of society. And again, the weakest member of society is not based on your socioeconomic status. In my previous video also I said there could be some women and children who may have property in their names because their parents were rich or their grandparents were rich. But even though some property might be there that the grandparent might have written to a grandchild, if that grandparent's property never went to that grandchild, even if on paper that child is rich, realistically speaking the child is not really rich. That child is still is going to be in that status of living condition that whoever is taking care of the child is providing to it, how much ever there is a lot of bank balance against that child. Same way, there could be a woman whose spouse might be ultra rich and she's married to that ultra rich spouse. But if the spouse doesn't spend even 5 rupees in the wife's health care, the richness of the spouse has no value to that wife, right? And not just 5 rupees in the healthcare. Suppose there's another ultra rich spouse who is a generous spouse, so he's spending millions of rupees and he's a millionaire or billionaire, and maybe he is able to spend millions or billions of rupees on the spouse's healthcare. But even that spouse who is spending millions and billions of rupees on the spouse's healthcare again can't bring the right healthcare supportive conditions in their life if they both jointly as partners over a year of their marriage haven't understood what is true health supportive care. Because when you are really in the stage of life where you are near death or you are so physically debilitated that some real compassionate caretaking is needed, in those stages right healthcare is very important versus how much money you spent on the healthcare. Because when you are near death, your body is in a very painful condition, very suffering filled condition. At that time, right palliative care, right supportive care, right compassionate care is needed than cruelty, callousness, or ignorance of the patient specific factors needed to help the person ease through a death cycle. Like, because if they are in real extreme bad conditions, they are going to most probably die within a few days or a weeks. During COVID, I had read a news of this man who was in a hospital bed for a couple of weeks and he had recovered a little bit in the hospital. But at that time, there was another family whose maybe a younger age person was needing a bed, but the hospital was not able to provide a bed to that patient because all the beds were filled. Now, this old man realized certain these key elements related to what is good health. Because when you are in a hospital, most hospitals in India or around the world can't expose patients to a lot of outside elements, because of which there is restrictive family time possible for patients. So if you are in an ICU, you don't even get to enter the patient's room or contact and talk to the patient. If you are in a normal hospital bed, maybe for 15 minutes, half an hour, you will be getting access to talking to a patient. But is it, while externally in terms of providing oxygen, giving you nutrients, giving you a hospital bed and ventilation, giving you medicine, you are getting the healthcare necessary while you are in a hospital, the true care that the man was craving for was his family connection, because he valued his family. And he could see there was another family who was wanting that bed. Maybe that other person's health status was in a condition he felt he should give away his bed. So that guy gave away the bed and got himself released from the hospital. And after he was released from the hospital, he did end up dying. But this guy was a mature enough soul to understand what was the value. Like, he could potentially have also died in that same hospital, but his death would have been extended by maybe 2-3 weeks, because in the hospital the conditions that are there to support his health are better. Like, there is good ventilation, there is good food, there is clean bed, there is doctor monitoring his status every day. So all of these adds to the patient staying healthy in the hospital. And it is possible if he had stayed another 2-3 weeks, after that when he went home again, he may not have died immediately, he might have lived another few months. But if the patient's health condition in the home life are such that this clean ventilation won't happen, clean water is not accessible, the families giving anytime his health is failing a little bit, some organs are not working, there is no doctor to monitor at home while he's sleeping. Is there? In hospital beds we have monitors which are monitoring your heart rate and blood pressure and all that, but when you are sleeping in at home, there's no medical setup that is going to monitor your health status, right? So if your body is actually at a precarious health state, while hospital or medical interventions will extend your life for a few years or a few months or a few weeks, if you're really at a very precarious health state, at that time death is a merciful solution, but that death can't happen if you don't gracefully accept those death. So this man was gracefully ready to not accept his death possibly, but he had this wisdom to understand that he has led a good life. He has a good family who is supporting him. He possibly wanted to be close to his family when he dies than stay in a hospital with 10 other sick patients. So he made that decision call to go back to his home, because he possibly knew that if he goes back while in the hospital, his health is recovering. He may have intuitively understood, if you are that close to death, you will also have that higher level, and you are a highly better developed soul. You will have that maturity to understand what is the next possible outcome for you. And he chose that path because he possibly wanted to help another family, but he also chose that path because say he was a very poor man, and if he is a poor man, he knows that if he the longer he stays in the hospital while his family wants to pay lakhs and lakhs of money to get his healthcare recovery, those same lakhs, if he dies, can fruitfully be used by the next generation of their family to secure a better life and health for his family later. So the longer he stays in the hospital, more money they will have to invest in a process where more merciful solution is if he had a happy death in with his family in the home, where he ate the food that he enjoys eating, where he spoke to the grandkids or children who love speaking to him, where his wife was there maybe besides him when he died. So all these are also compassionate ways of dying, right? So he knew what was compassionate for him. He also knew what was compassionate for a patient who is seeking a bed, that if he lets go of his bed, that patient will get the bed. So he did that kind of a choice, which was a hard choice to do, but even though it was a hard choice to do, it was a better choice for multiple reasons. So this is how any critical decision making points of people's lives are supposed to be. This is an individual specific critical decision making choice he made, but like that, there is a social specific, familial life specific, work specific critical choices people have to make. So when in a hospital people are going during COVID, that's why when there are only 100 beds and there are 1,000 patients who may potentially have COVID, who was able to get the 100 beds? Those patients who are absolutely critically ill, who without ventilation, without medical intervention can't survive, only they were getting admitted. Other patients, that's why, were getting ignored. But while during the peak time of the pandemic, everyone who was getting ignored, who had other symptoms other than COVID going on with them, while they can be ignored for a while because excuse me, maybe their health had some resilience, they were doing some maybe exercises at home, because I read stories of during COVID of so many patients in certain cities where they were getting insights about how to stay alive by or stay a little healthy longer in the home than getting hospitalized sooner, by doing breathing exercises, by ensuring certain right amounts of food they are eating. All these things people were doing, managing some preventative and supportive care related functions in their home life, so that even if the patient's SpO2 was nearing 95 or less, those people tried to manage their SpO2 levels at 95 by doing some good breathing exercises at home and good health supportive functions in their home life, which prevented that person from going into a hospital and using up a bed that someone else who doesn't know all these techniques, who can't apply these techniques to stay healthy, has to now go and use that hospital bed instead. right? So, but those same people who managed to stay alive and not get hospitalized, who were maybe also just at moderate level of COVID or mild level of COVID, they too, if they are having still ongoing symptoms related to COVID, the long COVID symptoms, they too now need to realize, apart from when the virus has gone and left your body, and if your tests are showing you don't have the virus in your body, what is the conditions and factors in your daily life that is adding to your health harm? Because the same body ache and pain that a virus is capable of bringing to you, the same sneezing and flu-like symptoms that a virus can bring, the same lung infection related problems or breathing distress or cardiac distress or organ distress that a COVID infection might bring to you, is also very similar to some health conditions that can arise in your body if you have organ damage, if you have cancer, if you have pesticide poisoning or fungicide poisoning led organ damage or cancer, or other organ malfunctions going on in your body as a result of exposure to certain chemicals. So in my previous video, that's why it took me a while to realize. Only after I had stopped exposure to certain pesticides did I actually realize, both in US and in India, that while some of the symptoms seemed very similar to some other health condition, the actual culprit was pesticide exposure. And that's why when the pesticide exposure was completely eliminated or partially eliminated, I ended up having better health recovery. And while medicine was helping me initially with the very severe symptoms of a disease, the real recovery in my body happened when I didn't take medicine, when I had right access to nutritional food, clean water, different kind of food, water, air, all of which ended up helping in dissipating and clearing away the pesticide toxin exposure related poisoning symptoms. Why? And neither in US nor in India have I actually got treatment until now for pesticide poisoning, because in US I didn't have all the symptoms of pesticide poisoning. That's why we couldn't realize that it is the pesticide poisoning symptom. And because it was not a acute poisoning symptom or a chronic poisoning symptom, in the sense that acutely I didn't ingest a lot of pesticide, neither did chronically my exposure was not as high a level as a farmer or a gardener's exposure would be, because in US I wasn't even doing any planting activities. So my level of exposure was only coming from food and air exposures. But because it was coming from food and air, and if water pollution was present in those areas, potentially water pollution exposures. But in India, it was definitely coming from food, air, water pollution, because in the water also I could sometimes sense the smell of pesticides. In air also you can smell when a pesticide is being sprayed, as well as in the food also. If content of pesticides were higher in food, I could sense and taste them in the food as well. Now, whether I had a heightened sense of smell because I was falling sicker is one aspect. But in general also, when I was a young 10-year-old child also, sometimes intuitively I knew when food was not tasting good. Like my family used to enjoy eating fish. But I would not enjoy eating fish since childhood days, not simply because I don't want to eat and consume meat products, but also because sometimes in those fish products that I was eating, they were not healthy fish, or they were not fish with good, they were fish that have been, because we're living in cities, most of the fishes that are available to people in cities have some amount of preservatives in them. So because they had preservatives in them, those preservative laced fish was not healthy for my body. My body revolted against consuming them. Whereas everyone else who has been eating, adults in my family, they've been consuming fish for 30-40 years. For them, the fish that they were consuming for so many decades, because their exposure to the toxin is happening slowly over time, because some of these preservatives that were added to the fish initially didn't exist. When there was a lower degree of population, lower demand for a product, maybe fresh fish was coming to those areas. But over time, when mass marketing starts happening, at that time fresh fish doesn't start coming. They are, in order to meet the ends, make the ends meet for a large scale population, sometimes bad amounts of fish also start entering the market. And because this is where the problem lies in all business operations globally, and this is where my business operations related knowledge comes up, that this is, and also the understanding, intuitive understanding of human nature. Human nature is, if there is demand and I have 100 of something to sell, say a retailer has 100 fish to sell, and the demand is there, he knows that the demand is there of 90 to 100 fish, so, or 90 to 110 fish he has a demand of monthly from this area. So he will send those 100 fishes, irrespective of doing quality control on whether all these 100 fishes are good quality. They will send, even all they will look at is, and this is where the superficial level of operationals or not mindfulness based practices have emerged in our work life, where if I have 100 fishes, I want to sell 100 fishes. People don't examine that out of those 100 fishes, if 2 of them or 10 of them are rotten, and the person who is doing the job of packaging it or transporting it, if they are not mindful while transporting it or packaging it, and some distortions happen at that time, and say another 2 fishes got destroyed, so by the time it lands in the retailer, out of 100 fishes, only maybe 95 fishes good quality. Then again in the retailer, if right conditions are not set, mindful workers are not present, another 5 fishes will decay. So by the time they're actually selling the product, only 90 fishes are good for sale, the other 10 are not good. But at some stage of these work operations, when the fisherman is giving the selling the fish, he should not sell the bad quality fish. If after the fisherman, the wholesaler is got awareness that there are some bad quality fish here, they should throw away the bad fish. But if any of these steps of operations, from the fisherman to the wholesaler to the retailer to the stocker, and even to the housewife who's, or the cook who is going to cook the fish, if you bought also again 100 say there is a party, and in the party, for the party, some person goes and buys these 100 fishes, they need 100 fishes, they can smell that 10 of them are bad, but they don't have the time to go and buy some 10 new fishes. What they will do, they will put much more spices in these 10 rotten fishes and still sell. Some people do that. I'm not saying that everyone does that. If in all of these stages the fisherman was conscientious, he will not sell the 2 rotten fish he had in his stock. If he can smell it, if he understands it's rotten, he will not sell it. If after the fisherman, same thing with the wholesaler, out of getting the 100 fishes, if he understands 4 fishes are destroyed, he will again not sell it. Now the next stage, if someone realizes 5 fishes are destroyed, he will not sell it. Like that, if even the person who is supposed to provide 100 fishes, if he finds that 10 fishes are rotten, technically he should not be serving it to his customers for the party. But some people do that. They do either, and all of these, there are 2 factors here. Some who will deliberately do it because they are in a hurry and they don't want to mindfully work and conscientiously do the work they are doing. Then there are some who will do it because their noses are used to so much chemical pollution that they're not able to detect, only their sense of smell has dulled. And also some people, our sense of smell dulls when we do a work activity for a long time. So if I'm working in a hospital, if I've worked in a hospital for 5 years, the smell of the chemicals that are used in the hospital will dull my senses enough that my body gets used to those chemicals, that I will not detect that smell in that work area. If I live in a home for decades, again, if there are some pollutants in my home environment, my nose can get dulled to that pollutant. But that is where a outsider's perspective is important always. And that is how, if I go in a hospital, when you are a patient, you have never frequented that hospital, you are the first time entrant to that hospital, or you only go to that hospital once in 10 years for your need or your family's need. Every time I enter a hospital, I can smell the chemicals in the hospital that are there in that area. Every time I'm a guest at a friend's home, even if I have lived in the gone and visited that home or a family's home, I visited family once every 2 years, 5 years, whichever family I visited once every 2 years, 5 years. Every time I visit their home, if there is some mold problem, fungus problem, bacterial problem cropping up in either their food, water, air, walls, clothes, I will be able to detect it sooner than they are going to be able to detect it if their condition has slowly crept up in their life. The only time they will be able to detect something nasty is when suddenly something different creeps up. Like say they have bacterial contamination in their food and they're continuing to consume that bacterially contaminated food for a long while. I as a guest understand there is a bacterial contamination in their food, and I tell them there's a bacterial contamination. Now it could be coming from the water supply, it could be coming from the food source itself, I don't know. That we may have to figure out, or I may even know that if I have that intuitive sense of smell, right? But if they live in denial that there is a bacterial problem, or if they live in denial that there's nothing wrong because their health symptoms are not showing any health distress, doesn't mean that their health symptoms are not showing any health distress. The distress is happening, but because for them the distress has been slowly building up in their body, their health harm has been slowly creeping up. But for a sensitive person, the health harm is immediate, or an outsider, the health harm is immediate. So that is a value, that's why, of having guests over. But if you have a guest over and a guest tells you something is wrong in your home environment, if you live in the denial paradigm, if you live in the paradigm that this person only comes to criticize, or if you live in the paradigm like I do not like any kind of negative words to be said about my life, none of these will prevent actually you having a health distress eventually in the future. While my health distress was certain things, that was, if I show a health distress and I'm saying because of your water, because of your food quality, I'm having this health distress, please fix this problem. If that person doesn't want to fix that problem, address that problem, want to live in denial of that problem, while I as a guest, I'm only going to visit you for a few weeks or a few months and then I'll leave. So I have the choice to leave, and after leaving I have a choice to now go and find a place where these health distressing things are not present. I am at least looking for that place. That's why I detected that place, right? That problem, because what you look, do you know the saying, what you seek is seeking you. If I am seeking a good quality healthy life, good quality healthy food, good quality healthy water related area, I can't find that area until I say no to all the areas and all the places where bad quality water is there, bad quality food is there. If I continue staying in those areas where bad quality water and food is there, I can never find the place where good quality food and water is going to be present. Or if I am supposed to do something related to this good quality food and water, that's why I'm making a video based on all my varied experiences as a guest, as a foreigner to a country, as a person who was a foreigner to my own country, when after having lived for a few decades in a different country, when I'm entering my own country, my body's immunity to accept some of the chemical pollutants of this country had now changed, because for 10 years I was living in a more cleaner environment, or a different pollution based environment than the pollution that this area has. So my body is used to the pollution of the area where I was living. So when I'm moving to a new place, my body is now not attuned to the pollution of that new place. And maybe at that time, as I said, I had this lung problems, because of which, and it's the lung problem was the most severe problem that showed up. But other than the lung problem, I was having skin problems as well. It's just that they were minor level skin problems in US, which escalated into major level problems over 5-10 years of living in India. So that is where anytime our health starts deteriorating as a result of environmental conditions, there will be different reasons for different people to have a health condition crop up in their life. Some could be because of multi-level pollution, some could be because of just one layer of pollution, some could be because of one thing they have to fix in their life, some could be because of multi things you have to fix. But first you have to learn how to fix the primary thing. So when a guest is coming and pointing out that there is a mold problem or a bacteria problem or a water pollution problem, if you don't fix any of those issues, the more you don't end up fixing it or denying that there is a problem, nothing is going to happen except that same mold, same bacteria, same whatever pollution elements were present in your area is going to continue harming you insidiously and slowly. It's a slow poisoning happening than a chronic poisoning of a farmers or a immediate poisoning of a person who's committing suicide. Those two are the extreme ends of poisoning, but there is a middle spectrum of poisoning that is happening to all of us when we are exposed to long term slow exposure of something that is building up in our water. So in the same areas, like if a housing society has been there in an area for 20 years, now that housing society that is there for 20 years and another housing society that's there in the same area for 10 years, both of them, same way like a tree that is there for 50 years versus 20 years, the number of years the pollution was there in that area is impacting the quality of the tree's health. Same way human health is also getting impacted. Whoever live in these housing, their health is getting impacted over the number of years of exposure to the chemicals in that area. And not just the chemicals of the area's exposure is going to impact a particular human's health. If my home is getting water from underground water, every single person in the housing society who is doing activities that adds to the water pollution of that area, all of our water pollution related additive factors are impacting all our health. And again, based on the pipeline or based on where our water is coming from, if I am the lucky, if there are 100 people living in a society, out of the 100 people, if one person's home is surrounded by good, clean, healthy trees, this housing society doesn't use any chemicals to grow its trees and the trees are growing naturally. Now if you have good, clean, healthy trees, the trees roots are also doing some filtration job underneath the soil. The trees leaves are also giving us the healthy air, so that person will have the best quality health if he has the most pure water and air quality accessible to that person. Whereas out of those 100 citizens, now maybe 5 or 10 of them live in a area of the society where good health supportive factors are there, their health will be the best. The rest of the 90, out of those 90, again there will be a spectrum. There will be some who will be living in that part of society where the pollution levels in the water and air are most. Those who are living in that part of society where pollution levels are most, they are going to get all the symptoms related to the most health pollution parameters present in their environment. And so a person who's in the best quality area of that society, but there's still underlying some pollution going on, just this person's air and water pollution is less, maybe the food pollution is still there, so he may have only one disease going on. Or all those 10 people who have access to this best quality life, out of those 10 people, maybe 5 of them will have good health, other 5 may have okay health or slightly deteriorating 1-2 illnesses related health problems. Whereas the other side where pollution is the maximum, again in there also there will be a spectrum. Some people will have 10 health problems, some of them will die sooner, some of them will be getting repeatedly hospitalized, and then there would be still some of them who may have a healthier life. Why? Maybe because they are a workaholic, they don't even live in their homes a lot, they only come to their home to sleep. So if they're coming to their home to sleep and take a shower, so their water pollution is happening only from the shower and the air pollution during the night time. Whereas in their office environment, everything is really cleaner. The water they have access to when they're drinking water, the food they have access to is all cleaner. Then there could be even one person in those 10 people who are living in really bad area of that society. 1-2 people with good work-life conditions or good health supportive conditions in other aspects of their life will end up having good health. And then there will be the middle spectrum people. Out of them, again, while in one end many people are dying, in the other end only very few people are dying, the middle spectrum will be those people who will be struggling between some having occasionally once every 5 years a eczema problem from water pollution, someone having a fungal infection from water pollution, someone a chronic fungal infection going on from continuous water pollution, someone could be having breathing distress from fungal infection, and they don't know that there is a fungal infection going on in their chest, because say there are certain what is the problem in India with the fungal infection? I have realized one is when you've given a sample, that sample needs actually in 1 week you may or may not detect a fungal infection, but usually technically 4 to 8 weeks can also be needed to have a fungal spore germinate in a lab to see whether a fungus was present in your lungs. So fungal infection is a little harder to detect. And also, if my area is not aware that there are 10 funguses in this area that could be impacting people's health, and they normalize testing, the hospitals or labs that are there in this area are only testing for 3 funguses, the rest of the 7 funguses are not getting tested also by their labs. So those are also some problem zones when testing someone's sample for fungal infection. Or what if my fungus is there in my body but it is not at a detectable level? Because when we are doing a microscopic analysis of a, like they will be doing pathology labs. If you are wanting to test for any kind of microbial infection, one is doing a chemical test to see whether a fungus or bacteria or something is present. But other than the chemical test, some will do microscopic analysis, some will grow that culture in a medium to see after growing whether the infection is there. And there are 3 levels you have to do in order to detect the critically ill patient. Just doing a normal diagnostic analysis is enough. But in order to detect those patients who are not right now maybe at a critical health level, but who do have an infection that needs to get treated, or that fungus needs to be detected in their body to understand, like if the area is not even aware that there are right now 10 funguses that are growing in this area, and they are only testing usually for 3 funguses. If you not even reach that awareness level, you have to reach that awareness level by what? By doing more than just what the normal protocol of something is. And it's only those who are able to do a little bit more mindful work or more intuitive work in understanding that this is what is needed to actually fix the problem. Like say, there's a path lab where the pathologist is noticing that hundreds of people are trying to get suddenly out of the blue get sampling done for fungal infection, but she is not able to detect the fungus while she is doing the pathological normal procedures. Now a wiser pathologist or a better quality pathologist, if you have observed that more than 100 patients are coming, more than 1000 patients are coming, unusual number of patients are requesting for fungal infection tests, it means that maybe there is actually symptomatically they are showing the fungus, but your test is not able to detect it because it is a fungus which might be a little different variant than the funguses you are testing for. It is a fungus that might take longer to develop in the lab. Maybe it doesn't take only 4 weeks to develop, it might take 6 weeks or 10 weeks to develop. Maybe you just have to look for a different fungus than what you have already studied, and in order to find material about that different fungus than what you have already studied, you have to connect with whom? You have to connect with research people, you have to connect with research workers who do research studies in these fields. You have to connect with a person like me who is in the middle level of a researcher as well as a healthcare professional who understands these concepts at a deeper level. But if you don't connect with these people, if you live in your silos, then you can be a good doctor, but you can be only a good doctor to those patients who have those 3 kind of fungal infections that your lab is able to detect. You will not be able to be a good doctor to the other 7 kinds of fungal infection ridden patients who need the diagnosis, but they're not getting the diagnosis because the testing mechanisms have not raised to the level at which testing has to happen. And that is one possibility. Second possibility is, again, and do you have to only work with researchers? No, you have to also work with farmers, because farmers and gardeners are also important in this, because they are the ones who have been partly responsible. Farmers, gardeners, business people, these are all the chain of people who are involved, and homemakers, they're all the chain of people, home decision makers, chain of people who are actually involved in propagation of a fungal infection. Why? Because fungus, it doesn't just simply grow in a plant or grow in our home environment and we breathe and inhale a fungus or a mold and get an infection from that, or we are bathing in water laced with fungus and we are getting a urinary tract infection from that, or a skin infection from that. That is all the superficial understanding of fungal infection. But what is the deeper root causes of fungal problems? The deeper root causes of fungal problems are fungicides are being used on plants. When fungicides are being used, not all funguses die. Some virulent forms of funguses are getting created when we try to kill the healthy funguses also, or the funguses that after the fungus was developed in a particular plant, the normal cycle, biological cycle would have been, if I am raising 10 plants, out of those 10 plants, if one of my planting trees, and I'm like gaining some fruits from it, say it's an apple plantation. In the apple plantation, if from the apple tree, if I have grown I'm all these 10 plants are capable of giving me 100 kgs of apples. Now these 100 kgs of apples that I will get, out of that, let's see one tree is ridden with fungus. What I'm supposed to do is not spray fungicide on it so that it doesn't destroy all my tree. What I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to actually bury it under the ground or burn it or something so that it naturally disintegrates. Adding fungicides, what it does is, adding fungicides only covers up some of the superficial fungal elements, but the fungal spores can still be there in your plantation. So if you see a fungus growth, you're supposed to throw away, discard those apples. If you can see with your naked eye, you throw away the apple. If I can't see with a naked eye, what other planetary creatures have been given to a human? A bird has been given. If a bird is biting into an apple and the bird realizes there is a fungus there and heavy content of fungus, the bird will not eat the whole apple. The bird will only eat parts of the apple which doesn't have fungus, and then she will leave the fungus ridden apple. Insect might also come. It will also eat the parts of the apple which are good, or the parts of the fungus that the insect's body might be able to digest. But other than that, again, that apple will be left half eaten, half rotten, half maggot filled. Those kind of or half worm filled. Those worm filled fruits, those fungus filled fruits, if you are able to detect, or half eaten fruits, you are meant to bury, instead of thinking that if a half of it has been eaten by the bird, the other half is good. Some people also in business practices do what? If these same apples are now half cut apples are going as cut apples into some businesses. Some people might start doing that. Some people might start making jams out of these half-eaten apples. Some people might start making applesauce out of it. Some people might start making apple cider vinegar out of it. All of which are bad business practices which have been practiced for decades of our life as good business practices, because in the past the understanding about business was, if I have 100 apples, 100 kg apples, I should sell 100 apples, 100 kg apples however I can. Out of those 100 kg apples, if 1 kg is rotten but only half rotten, I will still preserve. And why did humans have this pattern? Because those who have come from drought ridden families, those who were really poor, those who are the poor pickers of these apples, those who are really a low socioeconomic status person, for them seeing wastage of even half a apple seems like a painful process. But we have to understand wastage is an important part of life. People don't understand this concept. We have to heal this on earth, because this lack of healing of this problem is the reason why earth pollution parameters are getting added more and more, because we are unable to understand when death, wastage, decay all mean that that thing has to be let go in a healthy way than in a unhealthy way. The unhealthy way is cutting the, if the half of an apple was eaten by a bird, they cut the apple, that part that was eaten by the bird. The rest half, if it looks good to the farmer, he goes and puts in a other ancillary business activity. Now there, if you cannot see the fungus in that apple, but the bird had detected it, you didn't respect the bird's role, you didn't respect the insect might have detected it, so you've cut the one half that has insect, the other half that doesn't have an insect, you decided it's healthy. But it is not healthy. It might have microscopic amounts of fungus in it. So now if it has gone to make a fruit juice, then the fruit juice has microscopic amounts of fungus in it. And now those fruit juice makers, even though they are selling it as an organic product, it is now not organic, because first it was a fungicide raised tree that could have been the source of it, or it is not organic, because even if fungicides were not added to it, it is a fungus laced fruit that you are selling. And some of the manufacturers, after they get complaints now that your product has fungal contamination, what they start doing, they start adding antifungal chemicals in the fruit juice, which is again adding to the health harm, because how many products filled with antifungal agents can you consume without you yourself becoming sick? Because you have to understand, anything that is killing another organism, if it is an antibiotic, what happened with antibiotics in the past, antibiotic resistance started happening. So when you are wanting to kill a bacteria, instead of killing the bacteria, yes, 99% of the bacteria was getting killed, but there was still 2% bacteria which was getting mutated, and now that mutated bacteria was starting to show drug resistance. So how much ever you give the drug, that bacteria will not get killed. Then they discovered 10 years later another new drug. Now a new antibacterial came up, but again it got mutated. And now after decades of using antibiotics, what has happened? After decades of exposure to antibiotics, decades of using of antibiotics, the bacteria that has come up on earth are flesh-eating bacteria, really toxic bacteria. If you get infected with that bacteria, there are drug-resistant bacteria which will simply not heal, and the person has to die. Or a part of, you get a flesh-eating bacteria on your leg, sometimes your leg needs to be amputated. Why? Because of this resistance to humans. Because if you didn't have this resistance, you wouldn't have to have a leg amputation, or a human being wouldn't have to die from a very toxic bacteria. And if that toxic bacteria, which is untreatable by any medicine, spreads on the world, which it might spread someday in the world or certain section of the world, the whole segment of that population has to die, which is a merciful solution, because none of those people in that, and those places only, those, if there is, when the pandemic was happening, and if there is people who are doing research work on which areas of the world higher level of COVID cases were present, you will understand, if you do deeper analysis, true analysis, real balance analysis of what was going on, real balance understanding is present of what was going on, the trend people will see is those places where health supportive conditions are not possible to be found, where people are not understanding what is healthy paradigm of living, what is unhealthy paradigm, that's where mass scale deaths usually happen, because they're not willing to give in to the healthy paradigm of living. Some multiple elements of healthy paradigm of living are absent there. If certain elements of healthy paradigm of living was present, like say in a war zone, when war is happening, let's say 50% of the population, both the countries where this war is happening, are not living in a healthy mental paradigm, healthy social paradigm, healthy physical health supportive factors are absent. That's why 50% of that population might die during the war. But the other 50 who have survived, they have survived because there's something healthy in them that made them survive. But what was it healthy in them that has made them survive is not enough to make the whole collective again survive through the rising phase after a battle. Because at that time, everyone who survived has to also learn from the valuable things other people have. And this is the reason also why God levels the field when many people die. Because people at that time are, whoever is surviving, they have the quality to understand what is needed to be collaborative with each other, what is needed to respect each other, what is needed to find value and worth in another human being. There are so many children, when the world wars happened in Britain, there were children who were given away to their relatives to live in the villages when the bombing in London is happening. Now when bombing in major cities are happening, children were given to relatives in other poorer places or other village like places. But those children were meant to understand the value of what is a city life, what is a village life's benefit. They were also those kind of children who were maybe meant to understand this, that even if you were given to someone in a village, maybe they weren't even given to their family in a village, maybe their nannies took them. So they were supposed to understand the value of the nanny who raised them, not simply the mother who gave birth to them or the father who gave birth to them. They were supposed to value more things than simply money or luxuries, because what you experienced in a village life is very different from what you will experience in a city life or luxury filled city life. And is everyone in a city life a luxurious person? No. So for some of those children who came from really poverty stricken families, they might have even been taken over by strangers in the villages. When they are getting taken over by strangers, again, the city life was not health supportive for them. They were living a very poverty stricken life. So while it is painful that their parents might have died during the war, there was also a secondary element that some stranger who raised them was maybe capable of raising them and giving them a better quality life than what their own parents would have given them. So all these were the life lessons you had to also learn as an ancillary effect of war. In war, those who escaped certain cruel regimes in Germany, those people who were escaping during Second World War, during whatever was happening in the war-ridden places where cruelty was going on against certain segments of the population, again, what were they supposed to learn? They were supposed to also learn about human mercy. They were also supposed to learn not simply about human cruelty. Yes, they learned about human cruelty, but those who are able to transcend that cruelty and forgive those people who were cruel to them, or those who were able to see that even though there are certain segment of German population who killed them or were ready to kill them, there were also certain segment of the same German population or same France population or whatever country they were in who helped them escape. All of them were also there who were also of the same cultural heritage as the people who killed, but they had mercy and they had capacity to help these people escape. Or when they went and moved to a different country, again there was a mercy involved in the people who gave them a home, the people who gave them a job, the people who invited and allowed them to enter their country. So all of these are also part of the life lesson you're meant to learn. But if you get stuck in just the cruelty of your past experience, what starts happening, or the negativity of the past experience, you do not understand the real deeper higher purpose of that negative experience, challenging experience, imbalance field experience, or difficult experience that was happening in our life. So that's the thing we all have to heal. Understand the purpose of a difficult experience. If we understand the purpose of a different experience, we get to evolve as a human. But when we fail to understand the purpose of a difficult experience, at that time what starts happening is we start decaying as a soul. It is the same thing with a tree also. There are 10 trees in a plantation of a apple plantation. If in those 10 trees, one tree is completely decaying, that tree either doesn't have supportive health elements that will cause that tree to grow into a healthy tree, or the tree's lifetime span on earth has ended. That tree shouldn't be fruiting anymore. That's why it's time for the tree to start decaying and start dying slowly, and you have to allow that tree to die its natural death as well, instead of plucking more and more from that tree. So this understanding which tree needs to just be allowed to die, which, when you are a farmer who is growing 10 animals, again understand which is a diseased animal. Should you allow it to continue giving you milk? Or if you have a cow who is giving you milk, or a goat that's giving you milk, should you continue milking that animal, or should you let it rest and let it die gracefully? Because graceful death is necessary. Understanding death is necessary. Understanding the value of death is also necessary, because when a soul dies or a body dies, it goes back where? In Christianity it is said, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Why? Because when a soul dies, and ashes to ashes was a saying. Why they would use that? Because in other cultures, people used to earlier burn the bodies, burn a disease-ridden body, burn a old body, because it is a safer thing in a highly populated, densely populated place to do. When you have a lot of land to bury a human, at that time you don't need to burn the body. But when the land is less, you have to burn the body. It is a healthier solution. That's why in US also, even though there are Christians who burn their bodies, who don't burn their bodies, who bury their bodies, when land has become expensive now to get a burial ground, the cremation policies have started coming up, because it is otherwise the ashes to ashes, dust to dust policy wouldn't have happened. Because if you burn a body, your body came from the ground and it is now becoming a mineral again, and it is going to the ground in the form of a ash. If you have if you are still in your physical form and you have got buried underneath the ground, again eventually after 100 years or 10-20 years, your body will disintegrate and then get merged into the ground as it should naturally, because that is the value and worth of a mineral components of our body. When the soul has left, our body is only mineral. Biochemical processes, the biochemical processes have stopped, and we are just a bunch of chemicals and tissues. So those chemicals and tissues all have to disintegrate, that's why, and go to the ground. And not just go to the ground just as a normal cycle of that body, but also because we are providing nutrients to the organisms in on earth. That's why natural death is as important as natural healthy living. If you want a healthy living, you have to understand the value of death, healthy death. If you want really healthy living where no death will occur, even for that really healthy living to occur, multiple factors have to come into play slowly, step by step. Otherwise you can never go to that healthy way of living that will transcend complete true death. So that understanding also people have to slowly develop if they really want a long life. There are people who want a really long life, but there are also souls who didn't come on earth to have a long life. They came on earth only to have a short life on earth, to see how it is to live on earth, then leave. So those souls, if they are not allowed to die, you're putting someone in a vending machine, not a vending machine, but in a hospital machine operated way, and they are in a coma, but you continue pumping them fluids and nutrients and everything. And yes, while you are rich, you can afford to do that. But if you are a poor person, if you are a socioeconomically strapped person, understand that the merciful solution is not to incur heavy hospital bills if you do not have the funds to incur those heavy bills. So I hope this was insightful. I know I addressed multiple topics. I don't even know how to headline this video, but I'm sure I'll get an inspiration about it. But basically, death is important, graceful death is important, letting go of things that are rotten and spoiled is important business function, important real life function as well. Like if you have the capacity to transcend the poverty stricken area, you have to understand first that if you don't sell that to, if you're a fisherman, you don't sell the 2 rotten fishes, what is happening is the true way to understand the problem of why your fishes are rotting is to first let go of the rotten fish. Second, ask the universe, why are my fishes rotting? Like if 10 years back in this water I was getting a good 100 fishes, none of them were rotten, but now few of my fishes are rotting. Why are they rotting? If you're getting complaints from your vendors that your fishes are starting to rot sooner, do you have to do the reflection, why is my fish starting to rot sooner? Like maybe 10 years back they were rotting after 1 week, now they are rotting, like if they stay in ice the fishes were not rotting, but now after, instead of rotting after 1 week, the fishes are rotting in 2-3 days itself. So why is that happening? If you don't do that reflection, you will never get to the healthier way of doing fishing that will not cause any rot at all, or that will cause very minimal food loss. Again, if there are 10 fishermen in an area, one fisherman is getting a collection of fishes where only 2 are rotting, and whereas other fishermen are getting fishes where out of every 100, 20-30 are rotting. That is also necessary to understand which area of water am I fishing. Is the area of water the problem? Is the water pollution the problem? Is the air pollution the problem? Is there some chemicals I'm adding to my fish that is the problem? All these things, if you are a mindful worker, thoughtful worker, deeper diving worker, then only in this next stage of earth's evolution, you will do good work. And it doesn't matter if you're a farmer or a fisherman or a gardener or a business person or a housewife or a mother or a father or a child. It doesn't matter which status is what is your age status, what is your socioeconomic status, what is your work status. Doing good work is always more important to God. Doing good work is always more important for your soul's evolutionary journey, as well as realistic practical success journey on earth. So someone who gets successful, if superficially after selling 100 fishes, all of these fishermen are showing a lot of big bank balance after selling it, say there were 10 fishermen, all of them are showing the right bank balance of success, but which of them is the real successful fisherman doesn't get determined the day or the year or decades they were garnering a lot of money in their bank account. The real successful fisherman was the one who was mindfully working, who ensured that if rotten fishes are there, they are not getting sold, who ensured that after the rotten fishes are found in his system, he's doing the deeper dive into investing his money into understanding how to stop the problem of rotting fishes, where to stop the problem, what is his area of influence to stop this problem, and what is the balanced and aligned way to stop this problem. Because there's a balanced and aligned way which many fishermen still don't do it, many farmers still don't know it, very few pockets of the world are waking up to it, but slowly everyone has to wake up to the right way. And not just wake up to the right way, they have to understand some laws everyone has to take, the right laws people have to take in order to fruitfully go towards the right game, and which is of multiple level, from work level to spiritual level to karmic level, because you add to the karma also every time you are selling a bad fish, bad quality item, doing a activity which is misaligned with right way of living. So again, if you have any questions or want any expansion on any of these topics, please drop a comment. I would love to hear from you. Thank you very much.